There are 651 Gamecube games, and I'm trying to beat them all while at the mercy of this horrendous wheel. Welcome to beating the Gamecube. Game 35 is Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. Released in 2003, it was developed by Warhol Games and published by Electronic Arts. I was pretty excited for this one. It was our third community vote winner and our first dive into Harry Potter on the Gamecube. I've played two other versions of this story growing up, on PC where you use the mouse to draw your spells, and the PS1 game that gave birth to the ever-memeable low-poly Hagrid. I was interested to see how this one would compare. Did I become the specialist boy, or did I remain a muggle? Let's find out. Also, if you could please remember to give the video a like and a comment, it helps a ton. I was immediately thrown off by the intro cinematic because Hagrid was looking far too detailed for my liking. The story is incredibly abridged, and at several points it doesn't really make sense with how much of it they skip. Harry literally gets dropped off as a baby, and then he's off to school 11 years later. I liked the menu at least though, the music is pretty damn epic and the visuals are solid too. I had a browse in the options, and after accidentally watching an advert for the Quidditch World Cup game, we saw flight controls, rumble toggle, subtitle options, and various volume controls. A strong showing here. I always do love a good options menu. There is only the story mode and no difficulty selection, so we jump straight in.
Told you, didn't I, Harry? Told you was famous. Professor Quirrell. Harry, Professor Quirrell will be one of your teachers at Hogwarts.
Potter, can't tell you how pleased I am to meet you.
What sort of magic do you teach, Professor Quirrell?
Defense against the dark arts.
I really wasn't joking when I called this the abridged version. We start in Diagon Alley. I'm going to operate from the assumption that you're already familiar with the plot, so I'll just be covering it when the game does. Hagrid sent me off to buy myself a wand, and after trying a few, I picked up a Holly and Phoenix Feather one, and a little cutscene showed me its compatibility. Ollivander mentions how You-Know-Who did great and terrible things, like giving Harry his scar. This is where the story gets pretty choppy. The name Voldemort is not mentioned nor explained for a really long time, so if you were learning the story only through the game, you would already be very confused, since you wouldn't know who. Oh well, the bulk of progression revolves around completing trials. Doing so earns you a spell via a magical tome. Ollivander has a little practice version to teach us the basics, and the reward will be Flipendo. The tutorial was nicely done, it teaches the basics of movement. Harry can run surprisingly quickly, shuffle along ledges, and make some pretty impressive leaps. There are also various obstacles to overcome, including swinging logs and books that tried to push me off. I found the controls to be responsive and things were looking quite promising. I also had a remember rule which acts as our task list. Lastly, beans. Beans everywhere. Bertie Bott's every flavour beans are the currency of Hogwarts, kinda like that Recess stickers episode, and I spent a fair amount of time collecting them. Harry also reacts to the flavour every time you pick one up. Every single time.
Spinach flavour. Oh, bogey.
Bogey?
Earwax flavour.
Earwax? Why are they all bad flavours, Mr. Potter?
Earwax flavour. Revolting. Revolting. Yuck. Revolting. Chocolate.
Well, wait, there's like 50 bad flavours, and then there's just chocolate. Once I reached Ollivander, I was rewarded the Flipendo tome, which Harry essentially downloaded directly into his brain. You get a nice little explanation of how the spells work, and a choice to bind them to B, X, or Y. I was then given a series of tasks to help me train with it. Most of them were pretty simple. We started by smashing a jar, which revealed a Flipendo shield, and hitting that unlocked a door. Next I was taught how to lock onto and switch between my targets by hitting another 3 shields in the correct order. This also awarded me with the Folio Bruti, or the Book of Beasts. I didn't use this very much, but it gives hints on how to deal with various magical creatures and a bit of lore. The next task involved the first of said creatures, imps. These little pests move quickly and do a little damage if they touch you. I just had to Flipendo them, then throw them into cages. The final task, however, did give me some grief. Initially, it teaches you how to strafe, and doing so provides another tome. This one unlocks charging your spells. Doing so makes them more powerful, but charging for too long causes a backfire which knocks you down. To finish this trial, I would need to put everything together by continually hitting the rotating shield with a charged up Flipendo, all with good timing. This was legitimately difficult to do. You need to charge up at just the right time and release before it backfires, and you must do so successfully several times in a row. This took me longer than I cared to admit, but we got there. Once everything was finished, Ollivander also rewarded me with a collectible wizard card. There are 101 of these, and I did grab them where I could, but these are completionism and they won't be covered here. With that first trial done, Hagrid arrived and he gave me Hedwig the Owl, and then it was off to Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. The abridged nature of the plot continues with Harry being sorted into Gryffindor off-screen, and I also met Ron Weasley and Hermione Granger here rather than on the Hogwarts Express. I guess the devs just assumed that only people familiar with the source material would be playing, so it definitely feels like a checklist of plot points as opposed to a coherent story. I could now move around Hogwarts, and though this is pretty quaint by today's standards, especially if you've played Hogwarts Legacy, I think for the time it's really impressive. The castle is fully explorable and doesn't suffer from too many loading screens. They did cut some corners by not animating the paintings, and if you scrutinize everything, they use a lot of details over again, but it's only noticeable if you're really looking for them. After a little wander, I arrived in the common room, and Ron told me that Fred and George have a nighttime-only shop in the boys' bathroom. This is where the aforementioned beans come in. They could be used to buy wizard cards and a few tools like dung bombs and stink pellets. There's even what amounts to a gacha system, where you can use 10 beans to open a magical chest for random loot. This game was ahead of its time. It can be a bit of a pain to get to and from the shop, as Percy Weasley is studying, apparently by walking in circles, and if he catches you, he'll zap you with magic and chuck you out of the room. Funnily enough, he'll even force you back into the bathroom if you get caught leaving it, certainly an abuse of prefect powers. Once I was back in the common room, Ron was off to bed. This is his one defining character trait in this game, I swear. My boy loves his bed. When the going gets tough, Ron gets sleeping. The story takes place across a day-night cycle, with your Remember All providing tasks for each segment. Once you've completed said tasks, you can end the day whenever you wish or explore some more. Exploration involves looking for wizard cards, a lost and found system where you can locate other students' missing possessions, and you'll be rewarded with beans or cards. To keep the pace, I will not be covering my explorations in huge detail, but generally, between each task, I had a little mooch around the castle, collecting some cards and some beans and all that good stuff. This is definitely one of the stronger aspects of the game. Hogwarts is just fun to roam, and there's various shortcuts and points of flavour to encounter. While I was heading for my potions lesson, Professor McGonagall also explained the House Cup. As you progress, you can earn and lose house points through your actions. I wasn't sure if winning the House Cup would affect the ending at all, but I could not let Slytherin win.
Double potions with the Slytherins. Snape's head of the Slytherin house. They say he always favours them. We'll be able to see if it's true.
It's true then. Harry Potter's come to Hogwarts. This is Crabbe, and this is Goyle, and my name is Malfoy. Draco Malfoy.
The voice acting is certainly variable in quality, but I generally enjoyed it, and I also think the character models are pretty solid too.
You are here to learn the subtle science and exact art of potion making. As there is little foolish wand-waving here, many of you will hardly believe this is magic.
Snape's lessons amount to fetch quests. I was tasked with locating the ingredients for a Wiggenwald potion, asphodel, dittany, and Wiggentree bark.
Class dismissed.
Imagine being a teacher, and that's your job. Just like, go get these things, class. So yeah, pretty good. It was Defense Against the Dark Arts next, but I did a little bit of exploration first. While we show you some more of the castle, I could talk about the presentation. All in all, I was very impressed. As mentioned, the castle feels pretty epic in scope, moving around it was always enjoyable, and you have the task list to direct you whenever you want to get back to progression. The music was definitely lacking though. It's rarely noticeable, and compared to the absolute masterpieces from the movies, I was severely underwhelmed. Once I'd had my fill of collecting cards and beans, I went to my next lesson. Our next spell to learn was Lumos, apparently useful for revealing secrets and fighting spectral beasts. Instead of actually teaching you, every professor will just send you through a hole into a deadly challenge to earn the magical tome. After poor Neville got wrecked in a classic Neville L, it was my turn. This school is a legitimate death trap. It's my first day, and they have me scooting along narrow edges with blocks trying to push me to my death. There were also more of those pesky imps. Dealing with these led to our first encounter with some very glitchy movement. Some sort of medal. What? What? I just ran over that medal! On the plus side, this revealed that falling only causes mild damage. Wizard privileges, I guess. The medal thing was called a challenge shield. The amount of these collected determines your grade, which then determines the amount of house points you earn. The bulk of this trial involved moving a series of blocks onto pressure plates, manipulating parts of the terrain to unlock new paths, and fighting my old friends, the imps. Doing all of that caused an owl perch to emerge from the floor, and I needed to locate a treat to have Hedwig help me progress. This raised two questions. What happens to students that don't own an owl? And why won't my beloved pet help me without demanding a treat? Well, maybe that second one isn't so shocking. I found a treat in a nearby chest, and somehow a tiny owl lowered this lugging great ladder for me. After slaying a few more imps, I had finally located the Lumos tome, which Harry quickly downloaded to his brain. Lumos is interesting. I was mostly using it to light dark areas, which will then reveal trapdoors or hidden passages. It also is used to banish some spiteful spooky spoops. A lot of this was optional, but it was hard to tell what was mandatory and what would result in the challenge shield. The trial concluded with a really cool segment where casting Lumos on a gargoyle created a series of magical platforms. I have to say, they did a really good job of making this all feel very magical. To me, it feels like a Zelda game, but with wizards. After all of my trials and tribulations, I arrived back in the classroom and I was given a B and 30 house points as I hadn't found all of the challenge shields. Good enough. It was then straight onto our next lesson, flying. This is essentially Superman 64 because we're flying through rings. Thankfully, in this game, the flight controls are actually really fantastic. I was impressed by how sharply I could turn, and I absolutely smoked the first course. That earned me a distinction and 50 house points. After watching poor Neville suffer even more humiliation, I had to trace after Draco Malfoy who'd stolen his Remember-All. This was tough, man. Malfoy flies on a fixed path, and you both move at the same speed. I had to find ways to cut corners to narrow down the gap, but if I hit anything, I would lose a ton of momentum. He also spends the whole time yapping and taunting, so they did a really good job of making him loathsome. I finally caught him by making a really nice sharp turn, and he challenged me to a wizard's duel that night on the 4th floor. Man, this is a lot of stuff for the first day. I was pretty impressed. After receiving a letter from Hagrid, I explored the grounds a little bit more, and I made my way to his hut. The plot finally gets some actual progression when Harry reads Hagrid's newspaper and sees the Gringotts Bank has been broken into. He also asked Hagrid for help finding a potions ingredient for Snape, and I can now explore Hagrid's garden. Now, as you may be able to tell, I kinda like this game. I just think it's neat. But I do not care for the potion ingredients. This whole fetch quest aspect was tedious and added nothing. This first ingredient was just behind a series of simple challenges. My favourite part was chucking some gnomes down a hole because they make a pretty amazing sound. So yeah. Other than that, I crossed some glowing platforms and eventually I found the Asphodel inside a cave. I'd also just like to mention that Harry can apparently send objects to some sort of pocket dimension. Even when he gets cauldron cakes and pumpkin pasties, he doesn't eat them, but rather he disintegrates them. Ron, in classic fashion, is tired from standing about while I do all the hard work, so he went to bed. After a little more bean and card collecting, I did the same. Ending the day updates the house points, and I was carrying Gryffindor so hard it was making my back ache. And so began my first nighttime segment, with Ron and I off to duel Malfoy. Hermione, concerned about us losing more house points, which I'll remind you were all earned by me, got locked out of the common room and had to tag along. I was surprised to see Malfoy actually showed up, but it was a trick. He used a trapdoor to drop us all into the Forbidden Corridor. Hermione, of course, knows about the Alohomora unlocking spell and says we can find it in the library. I was set off to learn that whilst Ron and Hermione stood around collecting dust. It was a nice surprise that the tome itself is just chilling out in the open. I downloaded this one for free, and I could now unlock mechanical doors. I'd explored the library a fair bit, and this involved battling more ghosts with Lumos, finding a number of wizard cards, and collecting many a bean. Once we were through the door, Snape, with his Farquaad-looking hair, was on the prowl, so the kids fled into a nearby room. Here we encountered Fluffy the Cerberus, who was guarding a trapdoor, and the kids ran for their lives. With all of my tasks finished, I did a run, and I went to bed. Day 2 started with a charms lesson with Professor Flitwick, and he did the typical thing by sending me into a trial to learn the wonderfully named Spongify spell. I ran into a new annoying kind of magical beast, fire crabs. These guys constantly try to cook you, and you can't kill them, just stun them, so they were a persistent nuisance. The Spongify tome was almost immediately available, so with that downloaded, I now had the power to mildly soften things. Huge. I enjoyed this trial a lot. It was decently challenging, and Spongify may be my favourite spell that we had in this game.
Spongify!
Whee! Sponge-tastic. The bulk of this trial revolved around ascending a large platform. Well, that and fighting a copious amount of ghosts with Lumos. By sponge-bombifying the designated ground tiles, I could ascend the large chamber, and I would then branch off to find the various challenge shields. Every spell was getting used here, including my new Alohomora tech, so I really like how they require you to utilize every tool at your disposal. There were also some returning puzzle components like block sliding and the gargoyles that react to Lumos. As I neared the top, I had to start rotating a spinny ledge, and that opened further paths, and things just continued in that manner. Definitely a cool trial overall. Once I completed it, I was awarded a mere C grade, but C's get degrees. Potions was up next, so I would have to find my other 2 ingredients. Thus I had to trek back to Hagrid's garden and use my newly upgraded arsenal to explore more deeply. As mentioned, I definitely could have done without these fetch quests. I found them to be tedious, and I think the game would have been a lot more focused without them. We encountered a new kind of creature this time, bowtruckles. These can be dealt with by spamming Flipendo on them until they vanish. Making my way through a small army of them did take a while, but that earned me some Wiggentree bark. It took quite a while to locate the Dittany. Turns out it's through what I guess is Hagrid's storage facility. Using Alohomora unlocked a door that I previously couldn't, and I tracked the plant down inside a greenhouse. Unsure what else to do, I turned to my friend Ron for some sage advice. I'm going to bed, Harry!
There's nothing more to do, so I'm for bed.
Despite my C grade, we were still cruising towards the House Cup with 100 points. I did not know if Dumbledore was going to just cheat and give it to me like he does in the movie, so I thought I'd better stay on my toes. It was now night 2, and Ron directed me to the Great Hall for the Halloween feast. As per usual, the story makes no sense. Hermione is off crying in the girls' bathroom, but Ron didn't upset her here, so I guess she's just having a bad day. Professor Quirrell bursts in and says that there is a troll in the dungeon. After Dumbledore directs everyone back to their common room, Ron and I went to find Hermione to warn her about the troll. I located the troll inside the girls' bathroom, and after it casually tried to murder 3 children, our first boss battle began. We haven't learned Wingardium Leviosa like Ron used in the book, so that left me with my old pal, Spongify. Oh man, this fight is a pain though. It was legitimately challenging. I needed to spongify the ground markers and bait the troll into hitting them, which would cause his club to bounce back and bonk him on the head. The reason it's so tough is that the troll is really fast, and he causes tremors with his club and hurls boulders at your head. It took me quite a number of goes to rack up the 5 hits needed to put him down, as I kept running out of HP and having to start again. Thankfully, somebody has put a bunch of cakes and pastries on top of the toilets, so I had a food source handy. Brings a whole new meaning to urinal cake, I'll tell you that much. I did finally figure out the groove, and I managed to survive long enough to land all 5 hits, and the troll was down. Hermione lies to Professor McGonagall to protect Harry and Ron, and now that we're all BFFs for life, McGonagall says that not many first-year students could take on a troll and live to tell the tale. After that, Ron, tired from another night of doing nothing whilst I battled a troll, went to bed. While Harry goes to bed too, I want to mention a fun thing that we noticed. The troll noises are just stock sounds of a grizzly bear roaring. This made the whole fight pretty amusing, as I just couldn't unhear the World of Warcraft druid bear form. Stupid bear sound. This is too funny. The next day, I had potions, and I expected to actually do some sort of potion making, but no. Snape just gives me 3 more ingredients to find. Flobberworm mucus, pufferpod spores, and moondew. He also says we could take Wiggenweld potion from the cauldron whenever we like. This acts like a fairy in Zelda games, fully healing you one time when your life bar empties. Pretty good. I then moved over to herbology, where of course yet another teacher didn't actually teach me anything. Professor Sprout sent me through a hole to learn the severing charm Defindo. Now the funny thing is, here I was battling a troll. So the day after McGonagall said not many first year students could survive an encounter with one, every student supposedly did a lesson where you fight one. This game makes no sense! And man, is this easily my least favourite trial. After beating yet another troll, our main hurdles were a bunch of gooey pods that I couldn't damage with my spells yet, and some spectral dogs that are handled with Lumos in the same way as ghosts. After downloading the Defindo torrent, I was now ready to chop up all of those plants. A good chunk of this trial was just dealing with pods. They're a pain because you need to Flipendo them to weaken them, and then Defindo to finish them off. Not only that, but I had to battle another troll. After that, I climbed a bunch of annoying platforms and I chopped up some grabby vines with Defindo, and that was that. At the end of the trial, I was assaulted by a venomous tentacular, but Professor Sprout arrived and told me it was too much for me to handle. My grade this time was a B, and that was 30 more house points. Then it was time for bed. I was still 25 points ahead of Slytherin, so things were looking good. When I woke up for night 3, it was Christmas. A mystery gifter gave Harry an invisibility cloak, and we just happened to have need of it. Now, I don't recall Nicholas Flamel ever being mentioned in this game, but with how poorly they cover the story, who cares? But Hermione had sent a letter instructing me to head to the forbidden section of the library to find a book that might have details on him. Ron, of course, is off to bed while I use my cloak to sneak about, and I was curious to see how they would do an invisibility effect in such an old game.
I'll meet you in the common room later.
Oh, amazing. Also, I've still got my wand now. It's just glowing. I was wondering how they were going to do the invisible effect. This section's really long, but it's pretty repetitive. I made my way through a long series of rooms being patrolled by prefects. Much like Percy near the start, these buzzjoys will petrify you and chuck you out of the room if caught. Despite being invisible, these guys can catch you with ease, and also they somehow know it's Harry Potter. One thing I want to mention is that supposedly dung bombs and stink pellets that Fred and George sell will offer distractions to help you against prefects, but in my experience they had no effect whatsoever. After getting through there, the middle part was all about ascending a huge number of bookshelves whilst demon books tried to do their utmost to send an 11-year-old boy plummeting to his doom. After that, it was a series of easy puzzles utilising my array of spells and dodging more prefects. After I acquired the single most inconveniently stored book ever, I then had the great pleasure of backtracking through everything I'd just done and dodging more prefects. Fun. If you're a movie-only Andy, you won't know the character of Peeves the Poltergeist, but he showed up and yoinked my newly acquired book. After I chased him into a room, he just gave up and bailed, and this was all because they realised that they needed to cover the Mirror of Erised for the plot, but they couldn't think of a more elegant way to do so. As mentioned, I am assuming you know the plot whilst I'm writing this, but the mirror shows us what we want most, and Dumbledore says that he's moving it, so don't go looking for it again. Whew, after another action-packed night, whilst Ronald was sound asleep in his bed, I also hit the hay. In the next cutscene, Hermione said the book was no help whatsoever, and then Harry received a Nimbus 2000 in the post from Professor McGonagall, which also makes no sense because Quidditch hasn't been mentioned and we have zero relationship with her in this game. Whatever, man, it's time to go learn our final spell. Now, I guess I shouldn't be too surprised in a school where kids jump bottomless pits, but it feels a bit irresponsible to teach literal children how to conjure fire, but that's what Incendio does. Since this was my final trial, I decided to commit to getting my first A by finding all of the challenge shields, even if this did cause a few issues. Getting the tome required unlocking a cage guarded by 3 fire-spitting heads. To disable each, I needed to follow the path it spat into and do a small puzzle or some combat. Once all 3 heads were disabled, I downloaded one last spell into my brain files, and I now had the power of fire. Sadly, this is way less awesome than it sounds. Fire can be used for exactly 2 things: lighting a few braziers and fighting some plants. That's it. And unfortunately for me, my first of said plants was the next boss. It was one of those venomous tentaculars that we saw during the Defindo trial, and now that I had both Defindo and Incendio, I could handle it. This fight sucked! It's not difficult, it just takes forever. I had to Defindo off the various heads of the plant and then Incendio into the main bud when it was exposed. But during all of this, it constantly spits poison at you and it slams the ground, causing tremors like the troll. I mostly just found the targeting system awful. You have to get really close to lock on, but it just slaps you. But that's it. It just took ages. It wasn't exactly hard. But when it was finally over, I was very happy to see that I was rewarded with an A for all of my troubles. Nice. Now, what very well may be my favourite plot contrivance of all, Neville has been Loglecker cursed by Malfoy, and after Hermione frees him, he gave me a Dumbledore wizard card. And like in the book, this wizard card reveals that Nicholas Flamel and Dumbledore worked on alchemy together. As a reminder, the name Voldemort has never been mentioned, the Philosopher's Stone hasn't either, and if you were learning the story from this game, you would be so beyond baffled, it's insane. Whatever, man, screw you guys, I'm going to bed. I was big chillin' with 30 more points than Slytherin had, thanks to my A in Incendio, and it was time for our second to last night mission. Another of those letters from Hagrid told me that moon dew only comes out at night in the Forbidden Forest and I should come to his hut. This involved more sneaking past prefects, my favourite, but outside you have a lot more wiggle room, so it wasn't too bad. Hagrid says that something has been killing unicorns in the forest, and besides getting my potion ingredient, I should help him find out what it is. So into the spooky forest we go. Like every other character in the game, Hagrid just stands around growing moss whilst leaving a small child to do all the work for him. This was a nice and quick night though. I just lit up some spectral wolves and in no time I had the moon dew. As I made my way back to Hagrid, the central villain of the story finally got mentioned.
You all right there, Harry?
What was that thing?
A monstrous creature. It is a terrible crime to slay a unicorn. You will have a half-life. A cursed life.
But who would choose such a life?
Can't you think of anyone?
Do you mean to say that that thing that killed the unicorn, that was drinking its blood, that was Voldemort?
I'm saying nothing. Let's get going.
Ah yes, a character that's never been mentioned by name in the entire playthrough until now. I was still having pretty decent fun at this point, and we're near the end, but the last day was a slog. We'll be condensing it down a lot here. I had potions with Snape and only had one of the 3 ingredients, so I decided to head to class and just lose some house points because who cares? Only to find out that you have no choice in the matter. Hermione just wouldn't let me in the room without having all 3. Why? Also, Ron and Hermione, my supposed friends, both have their ingredients and they won't tell me where to find them or offer any help. I've been doing all the work, you sponges. So now the entire game grinds to a snail's pace while I go and collect the last 2 dumb ingredients that I don't care about and have zero relevance to the story. I returned to Hagrid's garden with my new Incendio spell. I opened up a new area, and I won't be showing much of this. It's all just the same puzzles and movement that we've covered, and it was more annoying than anything. I even had to fight another venomous tentacular. Perhaps the devs labored under the false belief that people would actually enjoy fighting these stupid plants.
Why, it tastes so good. I think I'd like to try it a second time.
After that ordeal, I killed a few pufferpods with Flipendo and I had my spores. That just left flubberworm mucus. Annoyingly, I could see the platform that the worm was on above me, but for the life of me, I just couldn't figure out how to get up there. I spent about 10 minutes looking, and in the end, chat had to help me by telling me where a hole in the wall was that would lead me up there. At least getting the mucus was somewhat amusing. The wormy boy is immune to damage, but he will attack you if you Flipendo. I had to lure it into a conveniently placed juicing station, and after heading below and fusing Flipendo again, the worm was mushed up and I had my mucus. Hooray! Like last time, I didn't actually make a potion. Snape just has an antidote potion in a cauldron, and he says I can take it if I want. He then mentioned yet another aspect of the story that has not been addressed a single solitary time.
Now that you've proven yourself against a troll, a little game of Quidditch should be easy work for you, even if it is against my boys.
I'd just like to point out, the word Quidditch has never been mentioned in this game ever before, so we've never joined a team, we've never practiced, but here we are, we're now playing the game. As per usual, I think this is just here so they can hit some story beats, but they couldn't be bothered to lay the groundwork like having us actually join the team or explaining the sport. Chasing the snitch is as simple as flying through more of those rings. The match is continually interrupted by cutscenes of Harry's broom going out of control, and Hermione thinks that Snape is jinxing it. Once she had used the Incendio spell that we're all too familiar with, I could finally fly unimpeded. Then it was a simple matter of flying through some rings and catching the snitch. In a surprising turn of events, Ron didn't immediately go to bed. Instead, the 3 of us had to go to Dumbledore's office to tell him what we thought Snape was up to. We're off to see the wizard in Dumbledore's office. Upon arriving though, Snape is there instead, and he says that Dumbledore has been called away for urgent business at the Ministry of Magic. After that, Ron was back to his old self. Are you gonna say anything?
There's nothing more to do, so I'm for bed.
Dude, my favorite character. When things don't go his way, I'm going to bed. That's very relatable. Let's be real. Well, here we are, the final night. After Hermione spent a moment bugged out and running on the spot, it was time for some quick-fire lore dumping. They essentially have to explain that Nicholas Flamel made the Philosopher's Stone, which produces the Elixir of Life, and it's hidden in the castle, Voldemort's after it, and then we had to head down the trapdoor that Fluffy's guarding, and I'm not even joking, they have to explain it all like that in a few sentences. So we went on over to Fluffy's room, and the gang concluded that Snape had already made it past him, and they gave chase. Well, after Fluffy covered Ron in some polygonal drool and almost ate them. Unlike in the book or movies, the Devil's Snare could not be beaten by just relaxing. Instead, I get another tedious fight against a giant plant. Yay! Just like the Tentaculars, you need to Defindo and Incendio your way through, and it's incredibly slow and incredibly annoying. Besides Ron being flung about, it's the exact same as before, so we'll just move on. My next task was to find the correct flying key to fit a locked door. Gee, I wonder which one it is. Maybe the giant one with glowing blue wings. Thus it was time for one final flying segment through rings. I like this a lot. It looks really awesome with all those keys zooming about and attacking you, and an extra cool detail is that this broom was slower and harder to steer because it's a crappy old one. It took me a couple of loops to catch up, and then that triggered a cutscene ending with Hermione grabbing the key and opening the door. The last trial was the most memorable though. In the book and movies, Ron is the reason the gang were able to beat the chess puzzle because he is the best player and that's his moment to be a hero. Here, the guy's asleep! I really wasn't kidding when I said that's his one defining character trait. My man needs to be tested for narcolepsy. So as is always the case, I had to do everything. Now this is the least chess-like game of chess I've ever played. Pretty much none of the rules apply. The pieces start in a fixed sequence, and you must destroy all of the white pieces without the knight that Harry represents being killed. However, every single piece can move in any direction and can only move one space at a time. So it's merely a puzzle to try and bait the white pieces into positions where you can smash them without being punished. It took me a couple of attempts to figure out the strategy, but you could easily cheese this because losing just has you play it again. Once that was taken care of, we were off to confront the final boss. I just have Dumbledore's like, and Ronald Weasley have some points for the best played game of chess in Hogwarts history. He was asleep. What do you mean? It was me. So, here we are. We find Professor Quirrell staring into the mirror of Erised, dun dun dun, and this could hardly be called a twist because the game provides no hints or red herrings, so as always it only follows if you know the source material. But regardless, we're here. Quirrell summoned an army of spectral dogs to fight me, and it was time for the fight of my life. Oh, what a fight it is. This is awful, man. This took me 20 solid minutes to tackle. I had to use Lumos like before, but these dogs are on a whole new level. They move faster, hit harder, shoot projectiles, and they leap across the screen at you. This is actually insanely hard. They all move independently and fire their projectiles, so it's super hard to rack up any real damage. What's worse, once you kill one of them, Quirrell will resummon them within a few seconds if you don't interrupt him whilst the barrier is down. The resummon thing happens periodically, and even if you're down to the final one, he could resummon all 3 that you've already killed. It's also super annoying to target him as the dogs keep getting in the way as well, so this all compounds to a super unforgiving and frustrating mess. And all the while, he's yapping away with his various annoying voice lines.
Too slow, Potter. Kill the boy. Too slow, Potter. Too slow, Potter. Get him. Kill him, Potter. Potter. Him, Potter.
A couple of times I got so close to killing the last dog, only to get sniped while stopping Quirrell from resummoning all of the others. What an insane fight. After those grueling 20 minutes though, I did land the finishing blow. We are, of course though, not done yet. A cutscene reveals that the Mirror of Erised has given Harry the Philosopher's Stone, and Lord Voldemort is melded with Quirrell and was hidden by his turban. It's now a final battle for the stone. Apparently the mirror is protecting me and can reflect Voldemort's power back at him, so that's new.
Wingardium Leviosa.
Oh, so Wingardium Leviosa! I never got to use it.
Wingardium Leviosa.
Ah yes, Voldemort's signature spell, Wingardium Leviosa. Now unlike the first phase, that was just brutally difficult, this one is difficult and incredibly obtuse. It took me a number of deaths just to figure out how to deal damage. He was yeeting giant rocks at me and the mirror was not reflecting anything. There's also no way to heal besides dying, and that meant I needed to do the whole fight with half a health bar. It's very unclear what to do here, and I still think the whole thing is dumb. It turns out he will occasionally do a weird, like, jagged earth kind of attack, and you must get hit by that whilst the mirror is protecting you. But the problem was, even when I knew what to do, it's really hard to actually hit him. There is a very short time limit to shoot his spell back, and failing to do so will backfire it like overcharging Flipendo. Add to that, the camera angle is complete arse, and lining up the attack is so finicky, and you have a recipe for a royal pain. I did eventually figure out the angles and I whittled him down, but I still think between this and the dogs, the entire last boss is extremely tilting, and I was very pleased when it was done. With Voldemort and Quirrell slain, I had beaten this game, and it wasn't over yet because the credits hadn't played. After Harry got knocked out by an Imhotep-style face, we immediately woke up in our bed and we were ready to beat this one.
Now, as I understand it, the points stand thus. In second place, Slytherin.
Don't even need your points, Dumbledore.
In first place, Gryffindor. I have a few last-minute points to dish out. First, to Mr.
We don't even need them.
For the best played game of chess, Hogwarts.
Oh, he actually gave it to him. I played the chess. He was asleep.
I award 10 points. Second,
He was asleep, bro.
Hermione Granger. I award Gryffindor House 10 points. Third, to Mr. Harry Potter, 10 points.
But anticlimactic, 10
The House
points.
Cup ceremony will be starting soon. We should make our way to the Great Hall.
Is it like 50 points for the movie?
You don't want to miss this. We've got a real chance to beat Slytherin.
What do you mean a real chance? We know we won. He's already said. Oh my god, dude, this game's so funny.
Come on, Harry, let's go. I hope we've got enough house points to beat Slytherin. I'd really
We
like
literally
to
knew that we do. He just told us. With all of my affairs in order, I made one last journey to the Great Hall, and we got an incredibly low effort and brief cutscene of Gryffindor winning the House Cup, and then a hard cut to the credits. There's also zero music during the credits, so I guess the budget ran out. But that, my friends, concludes Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. A solid experience, if not a little convoluted in places. It took me 6 hours and 58 minutes to beat, with a chunk of that playtime coming from being unsure how to proceed. I gave this a 6 for difficulty. There were a few tricky puzzles, and that last boss fight was kinda nuts. Enjoyment also scored a 6. I did have my share of fun, but it's a very unfocused experience, and I hope the later entries improve upon that. If you made it to the end, then please enjoy a sneak peek at what I'll be playing next time. We spanned the horrendous wheel, and this time it landed on Naruto Clash of Ninja. I used to be really into Naruto when I was younger, and some of the fighting games are pretty damn good, so I was hoping that this one would measure up. But we'll have to wait and see. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you then. Bye-bye.